Hey, my name's James Nicholson. I hope you are well. Now, I want to talk today about EPCs, Energy Performance Certificates. This is something that is stressing a lot of landlords out at the moment, and actually it's making a lot of landlords leave the sector, which is bad news for renters because what it's doing is pushing up rents to crazy highs at the moment. So we're going to jump into that. We're going to talk about what is going on with this EPC stuff. Before we do, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification if you haven't done already. And make sure you smash that like button, guys. That really helps us with the YouTube algorithm. We're on target for 100,000 views this month. And you can do your little part by smashing the like button. So if you didn't do it earlier, go on, do it right now. So, EPCs, Energy Performance Certificates. What are they? Well, if you want to sell a house or rent a house, you need an energy performance certificate. And I think they last, it's around 5 years that they last for. And so I've got these on my properties, but some of them I've got just because I purchased and the energy performance certificate was done at the time. And so this is a range going from, I think it's G up to A. And so A is the best rating that you can get. Very, very hard to get an A rating. Very, very unlikely. But what the government have been saying for a while is that landlords need to get their properties up to a level C. Now, that is hard. A level C is also a very, very, very hard grade to get. And some properties, it's almost impossible to get to that level. You see, if you've got an old Victorian windows, you've got sash windows and lots of a single brick, which a lot of older properties have, you're really going to struggle to get to a level C. However much money you spend on that property, it's just not realistic. And so the government set a deadline that you had to get there by 2025. Then earlier this year, they changed that. And so the new guidance was that you had to get to a level C, but you had until 2028 to do it. So initially we had that you had 2025 and you needed to spend $3,000 at least to get your property to that level. And if you spent $3,000 and you couldn't get to a level C, you were going to get a chance to still rent that out. Now they changed it. Then they changed it to 2028, but they more than tripled that and said you'd now need to spend £10,000. Now, no one really did anything about it because it isn't a set date still. And so this was a major problem. Landlords obviously want to spend and make their property better. In fact, there are some mortgages that you can get with a better interest rate if you have a good EPC, because lenders know that this is going to be a problem for landlords coming down the line. So now you have till 2028 to get there, but you've got to spend $10,000. But there's no clarity about this program. So what if I spend this week? Does that count? If I start putting some insulation in that property today, does that count towards my $10,000? Let's say I've got a Victorian property. It's never going to get to a C, but I want to improve it. I'm willing to spend the $10,000 right now. Does this money count? Well, that isn't clear. And I spoke to lots of accountants on this and nobody could be certain. And so why would you spend the $10,000 if they said it's anything spent after February 2024, for example? And so by having no clarity, that meant that everyone just sat on the fence waiting for some more guidance from the government. Michael Gove then had comments in the last week where he said, you know what, let's just scrap all of that. Landlords are under too much pressure at the moment with interest rates rising. It's unfeasible that this is actually going to happen. And so they've had this massive climb down on the EPC legislation. Now, lots of people aren't happy with this. Obviously, people want greener like climate. They want the country to be greener, but also they want to be more energy efficient. If whether you are someone that believes that we need to make the country more healthy and greener or not, I'm sure you'd like a lower bill. And so this is something that's coming from tenant charities. They're saying, look, tenants can't afford the interest, like the higher rents. So we need to make properties more energy efficient. And so their energy bill cost comes down to offset that slightly higher rent that we've got. So what's the government saying today? Well, what they're saying is, we're going to tell you soon, right? So that's basically all we've got right now, is we are going to update you fairly soon on what the next thing will be. I reckon that they'll push this out at least till 2030. I reckon that the 10 grand will probably stick. But I also think that there could potentially be some other ways that you can get grants and funding and stuff like that. So what I think the government really need to look at here is allowing landlords to have a special way to access equity. So maybe they're partially in a deal, right? So maybe they're in a mortgage deal at the moment that's fixed for 5 years. Make the lenders allow landlords to take out £10,000 from that. It goes on to the mortgage, so they've still got to pay that off at some point, which is fine. But it allows them to not have to actually pay out of their own pocket at a time when they're being hit by Section 24, when they're being hit by all these other things. And it's interesting, years ago, I had a friend that made a lot of money and helped a lot of people. There was a green deal, and you could get funding for solar. In fact, you got paid money by putting money back into the grid. He made a lot of money pumping these little polystyrene balls into cavity wall insulation, which made it all really easy to do, and people didn't actually pay out their own pocket. These sorts of things are going to make a massive difference. If you really want to hit that green target, bring back a green deal. Offer subsidies on things like solar power. Why not say, let's have a real solar revolution and make it so people can maybe borrow money off the government to have solar installed, and you take it off their tax, or you have a charge on a property where if the property is sold, you then get paid back first. There are ways that the government can do this. That would create hundreds of thousands of jobs. It would take off our energy dependence from foreign countries and gas and all this sort of stuff that's caused a lot of the inflation. Yes, quantitative easing has, but energy has been a big problem for us in the last few years as well. So there are solutions out there. The solution is get some funding out there, help people, help not just landlords, help normal people to make their properties more energy efficient. Now, the EPC, there are talks as well on normal houses having EPC ratings and guidelines. Well, we'll always have the rating if you want to sell it, but the talk is that you as a residential person living in your own house will have some sort of EPC that you need to hit, because that's the majority of people, or homeowners anyway. And so how's that going to be enforced, right? What if I'm literally on the dole, but I paid my mortgage off and I can't afford anything, barely afford food? You can't really say that I now need to spend £10,000 on this. I think it's all a bit of a mess. I'm not saying don't be green. I drive an electric car myself. But what I do feel is that this really needs to be thought out by the government. If you want us to improve as a landlord by 2030, great, fine. Set out the roadmap, set out how this works, give options for landlords that can't afford to do the work, that they can borrow against their property. That will help. That will get this done. That's the only solution that I can see. But right now, the government has had a climb down. Right now, it's up in the air. There are no commitments that you need to do as a landlord as for now. Let me know your thoughts on it. What do you think will ultimately happen with the EPCs? Do comment below. Do smash the like button, guys. Let's get 100,000 views this month. Do check out all the other content. You'll get me some more views if you watch this video right here.